I started to question some things, just wanting to understand it for myself, asking why and how and what was the reason we did things. So that led to me just going through a period where I said, I didn't say I was not, I said I was not anything. I was exploring. I was searching for what I understood to be truth. And it was in this time period that I went overseas.
Now, how did you happen to go overseas? I mean, what was the context of your first trip going overseas?
My first trip?
Yeah.
My first trip was in high school.
Okay. I mean, in the trip where you said...
Backpacking?
Yeah.
Okay, that was something I had dreamed of for a long time. That I wanted to take a 2-month trip, 1 month, 2 month trip, and just go exploring. I wanted to see a lot of different countries, see the way people lived, and get to know people a little bit. So I decided, I was working by this time. I had finished college and I was working, and I decided I should do it now. So I took a break from my work and I just left. I arranged to take a leave of absence. And then I started off in London, and I traveled through London, Greece, Italy, Spain, France, Morocco, and I came back.
And now, after you encountered these Muslims in Greece and you came back, did you have a desire to learn more about Islam, or what happened after that encounter?
I did. When I first came back, I was very curious, and I read online whatever I could find, and online you see a range of information, like both ends. And when you read enough, you get a sense of where the middle is. So I read a lot. And then also I would go to the bookstores and try to find any information about Islam, like books. I would buy books or check out books in the library, try to find what I could find, written by Muslims, written by people who are not Muslim, just trying to hear what people said. Research. And I continued that for some time. And then, I don't know, everyday life caught up, and I let it go.
But still, up to this point, you had, back here in America, you hadn't yet encountered any Muslims.
Not that I knew of. Not that I knew of.
Okay.
So, and then I got caught up with family and work and things, and I just didn't think about it anymore.
Now, how did it come back to the forefront of your thinking again?
Interestingly, when I came back, I ended up not going back to the company I had taken a leave of absence from. I ended up working for a small nonprofit in D.C. And at this nonprofit, they organized, it was a children's art foundation. And they co-organized a symposium on art and education, art and science, with the Qatar Foundation in the Gulf. So I was sent overseas to Qatar as part of that symposium. And naturally, in Qatar, I met a lot of Muslims. So it renewed my interest. It was a nice exposure because it's people, everyday life. It's not like you're interacting with people that are Muslim, and you interact in their everyday situations, so you get a chance to observe and see how people are. And I got to ask more questions.
And I mean, had your questions kind of evolved to being more detailed and kind of focused type questions at this point?
They were heading that direction, yeah, because it was not my first exposure, and I had read a lot. So it wasn't basic questions anymore. I was just kind of more exploring the beliefs and why people say, and why do you think it. My main question was, why do you think this is true? And what is your proof? Maybe it's my math background. So, and there was a short trip. I mean, I was working.
But when you would ask a Muslim that question, why do you believe this is true? What is your proof? What they would tell you and what they would say to you, would it be convincing to you?
No.
Okay.
No. They would tell me, the main proof they would give me was that it was in the Quran. But then, because I'm not Muslim, like, the Quran is not a good proof. Because that's not a proof for me. If I were Muslim, that would be a great proof. But I wasn't convinced. But it was a short trip, so I didn't ask a lot of questions. I went back. And then, I went back to D.C. But because I had met people, and I had made some friends, some friendships, I decided to go back again on a vacation. So I went back to Qatar, and I spent a little longer there, maybe 2 weeks. And on that trip, I went with the idea to just get to the bottom of this, to really understand, and to answer my questions. So I went back, and I asked questions, and this time I met different people who had more knowledge and could explain things in a different way. And again, my main question was, I understood that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, but they would say that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last messenger. And that's a key part of the belief of Islam. And I was like, what's your proof? How can you prove that this is the last messenger? And if you tell me it's in the Quran, that's not a good proof for me, because I don't trust the Quran yet. So, and there's no way to prove it. Like I discussed it with many people. There's not another way to prove it. So basically, the person I met, like we went through how the Quran is created. Because the only way to prove this is with the Quran. So we went through like how is the Quran created, how it was revealed, the fact that there are so many scientific facts in the Quran that you could not know at that time. And when you go through, if you honestly with an open mind go through the Quran and you listen to it and you think about it, just open-mindedly, then you start to realize that, yeah, this Quran is not like any other book. And initially I was skeptical. But if you really look at it, it's not like any other book. The way it was revealed, the fact that it was written down, the fact that it was written down in its entirety, and then the copies were made, and we still have one of those original 8 copies, and we can match it word for word with the ones we have today. This type of information, you don't get it from any other book that's 1,400 years old.
Right.
And so once we went through all of those things and I really thought about it, I realized, okay, the Quran is true, and if the Quran is saying this, then okay, I believe.
So when you were looking for your proofs and evidences, did your background in mathematics just kind of shape your thinking in the way that you would try to evaluate the information you were reading?
It had to, because definitely. Because in math, you do a proof. You have to have facts. You build your proofs on facts. And so if you don't accept the facts, then the proof, you can't accept the proof. So the facts have to be solid. And then once the facts and the arguments based on those facts have to be solid. There can't be a contradiction.
Right.
And if all those pieces are solid, then the proof is acceptable, even if the proof is not what you were expecting. Even if it contradicts your original hypothesis, still you go for the proof because it's solid. So once we found facts that I agreed upon, and then the conclusion was such that this is true. So then I'm at the moment now, knowing that this is true, do I accept this? Or do I turn my back on something that's true, that I know in my heart's true? And I couldn't do that. All my math training, I couldn't do that, so I couldn't do that in my life too. So I couldn't do it. So I went ahead. I took Shahada in Qatar.
MashaAllah. What was the experience like? I mean, was it something scary for you? I mean, how did you feel after taking Shahada? Because I just want to point out that, you know, it's a misconception in Islam that a lot of women accept Islam for a man to get married to him, to be on his religion. But for you, you did your own investigation and evaluation, and you weren't married or planning to get married, but you accepted Islam for yourself.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I was staying in a hotel in Qatar because I was just there on a vacation. So a lot of the research and reflection was just in my hotel room, sitting by myself, looking out the window, looking out the balcony. And I accepted it in my heart there. And I was nervous a little bit because it was a big step. Like I understood it was a big step and I didn't know where it was going to take my life next. But after in my heart after I accepted Islam in my heart at that moment in the hotel room, I was so happy. And I don't know how to tell you that. It wasn't expected. It wasn't something I ever imagined or had read about that I would feel really happy. But from the inside, I was just glowing. I was so happy. So when I went to there was an Islamic center there. So after that, I just called up the friends. I think I was leaving Qatar like the next day. Like it was the very last day of my vacation. The next day I was flying out. And so I called up and I went there and I took Shahada with some sisters I had known. And that was really nice to be with all the sisters I knew, but I was already glowing from, like, in my heart from before.
MashaAllah.
It was really great. So after I had taken Shahada in my heart in the hotel room, I called up the center, and I went there, and there were some sisters I had met, so I took Shahada there. And that was really nice, but I was already glowing from taking Shahada in my heart back in the hotel. So after that, they gave me some materials, some information. Books, you know, quickly showed me how to make wudu, how to pray. I had been praying a little bit with them, like just observing for a few days, like while I was there. And then the next day I was going back to the U.S.
And when you came back to the U.S., when did you